Hi, everyone. We're here today, and it's a big day. We've got a lot of stuff to look at. It's the only show I'm intending on doing this week. Um, I'm going to be going over where I am kind of on stuff. I only have four more um, of the Advents to tape, and and they're all over and loaded and ready to go and in the right order, which is always sort of a challenging thing. I've got Hi Rossi, hi Linda. See both of you. Linda's been hanging out for a while. She must have got behind her computer early, playing games. Um, Adventing is still adventing. It's still doing its thing, and because so many people kind of wrote to me and asked for me on the side, there will be a 25th day of the Advent calendar. And on that 25th day, an old friend of mine named Sherlyn has agreed to come on with me, and we're going to go day by day through the stones. So you can kind of see, because what happened to me, and I'll explain it better when I get to that day, the synchronicity of the reader, the person or friend or student or colleague, or however they ended up in the mad mix of the 24. Um, it's just incredible. I had two women who changed crystals. One was going to be the day before. They had to make a shift, so they just one took over the other one slot. And I take the crystals exactly as they are in order in the Advent calendar. And by making that shift, it made an enormous change to the story that we had and the connection that people have. The connection people have with stones is just absolutely incredible. And by the time we're finished with the 24 stories, you'll see how different it is and how every person brings their own swing to it. I've learned things about people that I had taught, that I thought I knew, that I found out I didn't know. Some people showed up completely prepared. Some people showed up with whatever I threw at them. Because I don't open the stones until the day that we're going to read them. So that's been kind of a fun trip for me. And figuring out which one it is and where to go. Because a lot of stones look alike, so I use my stone identifier. Anyway, we'll go into all the peculiarities of how to advent the Advent season with crystals at that point. At this point, I'm still doing 12-month readings. I'm still doing any other kind of reading you want. If you want a past life, if you want a 3-month, whatever, I would. I am not so overwhelmed with this other stuff. Actually, readings fit in quite nicely with doing this stuff. I did a grid reading yesterday. It's absolutely marvelous. It's somebody I followed in my chat for a while. She showed up. We just had a glorious time. She got the perfect grid reading for her when we discussed where her life was and what was going on around her. And I'm really excited. I hadn't built a grid in 6 months, and I was really getting kind of itchy. I want to build a grid, but I can't invent them out of whole cloth. I need a focus. So I'm back and happy to do grids, and grids are great gifts to give to someone else. I've had people give them to their kids, to their grown kids, and to friends, and one did it to a husband. Linda, I'll do a real quick reading for you. I wasn't going to do any readings because I've got a lot of stuff on my agenda. But if you hang on to the bitter end, Linda, we'll do a reading for you. And I'll mark you right now so that I get you done. Okay, now enough about that part of me. Now, solstice info for 2024. For those of you who don't know, solstice is, if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's the shortest day of the year. It's the day when the sun, even in ancient times, they realized the sun was going to start coming back. And it's kind of like, who celebrates it? I've got a sheet here. I picked 8 different cultures from the north to the southern hemispheres. Soyal, Soyal. It's a Hopi dancing ceremony that happens around the solstice, and it's where they use Kachina dolls, and it's where they welcome back the sun. Yolda, which is a Persian festival, and it is. I don't know how many of you know much about Mithraism. I think I'm saying right, but it was competing with Christianity at one point in the Mideast for followers. It's a Persian faith. It's a Persian festival, and Yolda, Yolda, is their celebration for when um, the light overcomes the dark, and that's basically part of what this, just like the Jesus, just like the Christ things are. It's a part of their mythology, it's part of their belief system, and Mithra is the one that is tied to that. There's was a new one on me. I found it today. Inti Raymi, and it's INTI Raymi, Raymi, and it's an Incan festival, and it matches our solstice festival, but it's actually in June, which makes sense, which is their shortest night of the year. And the Spanish, when they got there, said, "No, no, 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 no. You can't have your own. You can't have your own festivals. You can't do this." Da 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 da. But it's been revived, and when they revived it, they got rid of the part about human sacrifice, which I don't know how you feel about that, but I think that's kind of a positive. Saturnalia, which is the Roman festival that was in December, and the ones that hit the northern hemisphere. If you think about December, that's when all the farmers and the crop workers put down their crops, their tools, and they get a chance to rest. That's kind of universal around solstices. It's a time to kind of go play. Saturnalia was like that, and that's why Christmas is in December, because that's when the Christian church was really good at assuming other people's festivals and filling up that time. And they took over Saturnalia, and I knew that one because I had the rather unfortunate experience, not of being born in ancient Rome, although I probably was, but of studying Latin for 4 years. So every year in December, when if I cared less about Latin any other time, December was one of the high points. We had to discuss Saturnalia. Oh, Mid-Center Antarctic, and that's their longest day of the year, but they celebrate it and they make each other handmade gifts because they have 24-hour sun on that day. Santa Lucia, which is the Santa Lucia, which is the festival you've seen where the little girls have a wreath of candles on their head and little red ribbons, and they all look wonderful and innocent. And I always wondered what weird sadistic parent came up with that. I mean, but they love it. I mean, it's their festival, and apparently they know how to get those things on their heads so the kids' hair's not starting on fire. I don't know about their kids, but I know my one daughter, I wouldn't have dared put her in that. And then, but Santa Lucia, it started in the Scandinavian countries. That's the one that we always see, but it's also a big part of Italian festivals. And it also times with the solstice. And I may blow this, but it's the Japanese, it's the Chinese festival. It's Dongxi, and I think it's Dongzhi, and I think that's Dongxi. And it's an ancient family tradition that because they were so tied to their land, and it was such in the extreme agrarian times they were in, everybody would return to the farm, and it was a time when they kind of let loose and ate a little more and played a little more and did more, and it was a celebration. It still is an extremely important festival in China. All those are going around at the time that we say we're having our solstice. So solstice rings with the world, and I've kind of known that and I've kind of got some interesting things to say about the solstice this year. For us, if you're looking for symbols and ways you can bring the solstice into your house, that I know you can walk down to your local craft store and find it. Candles represent the sun. Pine represents healing. Hollies represent God. And if you think about that old hymn, The Holly and the Ivy, about the Virgin Mary, that's a song about the Virgin Mary. And the holly is the God part of that. Mistletoe was a goddess, and she was a goddess into Scandinavian times, into ancient times. She's also a symbol that we have. And um, a Yule tree or Yule log is a sign of renewal. And there's a lot of people that have traditions around burning a Yule log. And where I grew up, it was cold, and we had fires and fireplaces with real wood. None of that hit the little lever and hit your gas button and it goes. Um, and so we had Yule logs, and those are important for renewal. If you want to watch an ancient festival on the day of the solstice, which is the 21st, go to the English Heritage site, and you can find it on YouTube. You can find it, just Google it. They will send you a link, and they will send you the link so when they start their festival at Stonehenge, you can watch it. And I've watched it one year, and it's really an interesting. I went to Stonehenge with my littlest one, and we ended up being, it's got to be the windiest place I've ever been in my world. Susan was only 4, and we were holding her down like anchors. She would have blown across the plain of England if we hadn't held on to her. And they said, "Are you sure you want to go up near the stones?" And we're like, "Looking, guys, we're not going to be back here. So yeah, we want to go up." So you go through this tunnel and you emerge up into where the stones are in the plain. And there are 2 little of their, like, we'd call them forest rangers, but they were rock rangers. We were out there watching the rocks. And one of them finally came up and said, "Would you like to go touch one?" Because there was no one else there. Everyone else in England had good sense and went home and stayed out of the wind that day. So we went up and we got close enough to touch something. It's a very incredible place. And it's an incredible place if you just want to watch it for that ceremony. And that will be live. Or if you don't want to be up, well, if you're watching it live in our time, it's like in the middle of the night in the US. But I'm not sure exactly what the timing is. Go look it up. I did check on it this morning. There is a link you can get to it. Now, why am I so hepped up about the solstice? Because in 2017, I ran into crystals when I was visiting a friend in Denver. And I started learning all about stones. And then I was reading about stones, and I read an article about how in 2017, 2018, there'd been a photonic shift across our part of the universe. And where we are in our galaxy, we'd rolled away from a cloud of something that had protected us for years from the stray photonic energy. Now, photonic energy, the first time I remember hearing about it, it was on 60 Minutes, and I think it was in like the 1970s. And they were talking about how hard it was for them to even get a photon, because photons are so small and so fast, they pass through the planet. And there were the great lengths all these people are going through to try and find photons, and they find maybe 4 a year and all this stuff. Well, now we're in the middle of whatever was protecting us before is gone, and photonic energy is raining down on us. Well, the geologists popped up, in particular Rory Duff, who's this guy. Rory Duff popped up and said, "We've been expecting that. We saw photonic shifts in the stones 13,000 years ago." And when I was reading the article about it, I went, if those photons can move crystals that are in stones, and I work with stones and they're hard, what's it doing to us? And we have like ideas. So in my first days of talking about the photonic shift, I did some shows on it, and I found some articles where one of the first places that they saw photonic shift in our own cells were cancer researchers, and they were looking for a specific thing in treating people. And this one woman, cancer researcher, said, we can't figure out, this, it's nothing we put in there should cause this. So they're getting very upset, and they were looking at it. And she went home and she mentioned it to her husband. And her husband was an astrophysicist. Now, this must be a fun family for dinner conversation. But he said, when did they start? So they went back and started looking at it. Anyway, we have been being changed since 2018 by shifts of energy that are coming in from outer space. And I'm going to send you a picture. This is a picture of the web that's kind of around the Earth. And some people say that matches the ley line. Some say it matches sacred webs and things that have been seen by different faiths over time. But what it says is that, we had a web and now things are getting through the web. Thank you, Jen Miranda is a new member. Yay for Jen Miranda. And so that's kind of my picture of the Earth and what it looked like before. And I use that to show it was kind of, we had a web that was covering stuff and finding things. And now, by following that stuff and looking at that web, I found out about ley lines, and I've actually read this whole book. Go to his websites and look at the highlights. He's a physicist. I mean, he's a scientist, and he can get very detailed. And in England, they take their ley lines very seriously. That's where they were found. That when we call them ley lines, LEY lines, but actually they're all over the world, and actually every culture has them. And what ley lines are? Ancient energy paths. They long time ago, our ancestors used to walk from here to there. Now in England, they've had a particular fetish of putting cathedrals, churches, monuments at these power points where the ley lines cross. And it's a whole thing in England. I mean, there's a Google map in England where if you find a ley line and you know how to document it, they will let you document it, so that they have some of the best documented. And some ley lines are huge and some ley lines are not, but so you can look at that, and that'll give you some idea of the kind of power we're talking about. And the reason I bring up ley lines at this point goes back to, I heard there was a thing called a ley line tree. And it's a tree that the ley lines run under, and it deforms it a little bit so you can follow it. So I kept saying, I really want to go find a ley line. But, highly sacred sites in Dallas are limited, I think. They're actually not. That was my mental problem, not the universe's. So I said, well, I really want to see some of the stuff. I want to understand it. And I kept hearing there are ley lines near you. And then one night I woke up and I met Cecil. Cecil is my dragon. And this picture was painted by a lady who's a friend of a friend. And she wrote my friend and said, I've painted this thing. It's not like anything I've painted before. And it was Cecil. And this happened to be one of my 3 or 4 friends that when I really go off the rails, I call them up and say, could this work? And I was explaining Cecil to this person, and she sent me this picture, and she said, is this your dragon? And I went, holy crap, how'd you get a picture of my dragon? Not only did she get a picture of my dragon, Cecil showed up one night and said, I'm going to take you around the world so you can see things. So, having been a good child and seen the never ending story, and I got on his back and we flew around the world. It was just incredible because, like, if you fly over Paris, you can see the Eiffel Tower. You fly over London, you can see Big Ben. You fly over the pyramids, you can see where they are. And finally, Cecil said, "Hold on." And I said, "Well, I don't know what the hell else you think I'm going to do." But I held on. And the next thing I knew, I was looking down at this. And it was in the middle of the ocean. And it was glowing in the center, but the top was dark. And the best I can figure is it was in the North Sea off of Ireland. And Cecil said, we're going in. And I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. So I just hung on. And by the way, dragons are very soft and plushy. They're not scaly like you think. And I went down into this portal following the little lights that were leading us. And I ended up in the most magical place you can imagine. I mean, it just blew my mind away. And it was like a Tolkien-esque sort of forest. It was twilightish. It wasn't dark. And Cecil said, you can get off here. They will come get you. And I went, who is they? And out of the forest walked all of the fairy tale creatures that I'd ever had in my mind. The elves, the tall sylphs, there were unicorns, there were centaurs, there were all kinds of the critters and things that make up myths of our lives. And when I was growing up, I grew up with a big fat book about this thick, Myths and Legends of the World was in my reading next to my bed. So if I wanted to go to sleep at night, that's what I read. And I thought, well, I'm back in the book. And then they came up and they said, we're having a party, come with us. So they led me into the woods. And in the woods, there was a big opening. And they were obviously having a fun party. And they were leaping and dancing. And I talked to them. I don't remember everything we said. But I do remember them saying, I said, why am I here? You know, maybe I'm a myth too. Who knows? And they said, you're here because at that point I was doing 9 candles. And they said, you understand the point of ritual. And elementals are part of the rituals. And we left the earth when humans lost touch with the land. When the industrial revolutions came, or whenever the country would become urbanized instead of being a country, a place of open space. And eventually they were driven, they have a space they live on it's on Earth. And I said, well, and they said they have a real problem right now because they keep trying to come out and show themselves to people. But people think if they're pretty fairies that they're angels, or they think they're aliens. And they said, we're not aliens. We are as much a part of the earth as you are part of the earth. And I said, okay. Well, I'm not going to say no because my only way out of here is with the dragon. So I go back, and at the end of the evening, they say goodbye to me and they wave at me, and they're all in their party clothes and they're having a good time. And I go home with Cecil, and I wake up in my bed, and I wrote out the whole dream. And I went about my way because they had said, you have to get on your channel and start talking about elementals and about how we're coming and about why we went away. And you have to study more of us so you understand us better. And elementals, they are earthbound creatures. I believe they're part of what came off the earth, just as the parts of us that are earth creatures are earth creatures, because they have a wicked sense of humor and they will hurt you. I mean, if you screw with them, they hold a grudge. You could feel that. They had more of those sorts of feelings than any angelic creature or anything else I think I've ever met. Matter of fact, I don't think, I've met an angel. I take that back. I've met 2. So I go on, And I talked to my one friend who ended up sending me Cecil's lovely picture. And she said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I really don't want to be taken to the folks home early, so I think I'm going to let it lie and see what happens." Well, what happened was, oh, 2 weeks later, I still hadn't done a show on elementals. And I'd done crystals and I'd done different things, but I hadn't done the elementals. Um, and I went out to get in my car and I got in it and started the motor and I heard a tap, tap, tap on my windscreen, my windshield. What's you call windshields? And it was a golden dragonfly. Dragonfly is my spirit animal. It's a golden one. And it, how they move real quick, it moved to the driver's side window. And I looked at it and I go, "You're not going away until I do this, until I really have that show." And basically, I was debating down my drive, am I going to do this show? Am I going to go out there and say those things? And finally I said, "Okay, I'll do the show," because the dragonfly was right in front of my vision while I was trying to drive. And it disappeared. And I've never seen the golden dragonfly again. So I did my first shows on elementals, and I've done several different things. I weave an understanding of them into my life, and I kept saying to them, I want to know where my ley line is. And they said, "There's a ley line tree within vision of your house." And I went, "No, there's not." And right after that, Hogarth showed up. Hogarth is a tree right across the road from where my drive is. And all those lumps and bumps on him, those are called burls. And those are very typical. So now he has an enormous number of burls. But he has, and I said, "Is this my ley line tree?" So I went and walked all around it. And at the time, and I couldn't find my pictures of this, they literally had made a yellow path that went right underneath him, came out the other side. It's like someone had taken yellow paint and painted it striped on the ground. And they said, "Yes, we even had to put a yellow stripe there so you'd understand what you're looking at." So this is Hogarth. And Hogarth has been here for a long time. And like all earth elementals and earth and tree creatures, he is long and slow. He doesn't move much of anywhere, but he knows everything. And because he's so close to my front door, he and I can have grand conversations. And so last year, this does have a point, guys. Last year, that's what Hogarth looked like. He was bare and just sitting there. And it got to be spring and things were really starting to bloom. And I said, "Hogarth, when are you going to bloom?" And where'd he go? Oh, okay. I went out and he looked like the tree I just showed you. This one, not a thing. The way Hogarth blooms. Where'd it go? I'm not doing well. Okay. The way they bloom is they bloom out of their little burls as well as their tree, just like branches. But the other trees, honest to God, Texas blooming's not, it's hard to tell sometimes. But I said, "Hogarth, when are you going to bloom? When are you going to bloom? And, are you okay?" And he said to me, "Come back tomorrow." And I said, "Okay, I'll come back tomorrow." And that's what he looked like. He was covered with this had happened overnight, literally. And I said, "That change, it's so fast." And he said, "It's going faster." And I said, "What do you mean it's going faster?" He said, "The change is coming to each of us and all the things on this planet even faster." And so if you notice, like Hogarth, he's kind of where there's not grass is sort of where the ley line is. So I looked at him and I said, "That seems a lot bigger." and I couldn't find the edge of the ley lines. The first time I hung around Hogarth, I could only stay in the ley line energy for a while, and then it was so overwhelming, it would go away. I mean, I had to go off of it because it would overwhelm me. Now I can stand out there and talk to Hogarth for a while. But finally I said, Hogarth, I can't find the edge of the ley line, because wherever I walked, I could feel that energy. It had like quadrupled in space. And he said, go look for it. You'll find it. So as I was walking back to my house, I looked down and there was this is the color grass is, the green that's on the bottom. That's what grass normally looks like. It does not look like this electric blue leaf. I've never seen that leaf anywhere else. And you can see how dead the ground is. It's like, that's Texas in springtime. And I said, is that the edge of the ley line? It's almost the whole width of the green space that Hogarth sits in now. And for 10 days, I went out there through rainstorms and everything. I mean, I have several different shots of this leaf. I really hate people's family pictures. I think they're kind of boring. So I kept that one because it's the cleanest one to see. And I asked Hogarth, I said, is it all going to change that fast? And he said, just that fast, if not faster. So 3 or 4 days after I had that conversation with Hogarth, I was listening to Pam Gregory, another new name you have to know. Pam Gregory, the astrologer, was talking to Rory Duff. And he was talking about how, and I knew this before, the ley lines at the solstices get straight. And people really, this is their whole hobby in England, is to see how wide their ley lines are. And they know whether they're straighter or they're narrower or whatever. And I suppose people do it. I do know people do it in other parts of the world, because I know there's groups of people who are doing it in the US now. And he said, it's all going to change. And I thought, well, that sounds like something Hogarth said. And what he says is going to happen at this winter solstice is the ley lines are going to lock in place, and they're not going to wave anymore. They're not going to move anymore. They're going to be as wide as they are. They're locking in place to begin to hold the world together. And I know a ley line healer named Johan who lives in South Africa, and he repairs ley lines. Apparently South Africa has a lot of trouble holding its ley lines together. And he straightens them out. I did several shows with him a couple of years ago. And apparently he told me at one time that one of the urgencies of them trying to get the big ley lines and vortex lines all together is because at some point, because we're going through this photonic stream, we're getting back to the beginning, back to 2017 when the photons came in. They're going to build up, and they're going to run through the core of the earth, and they're going to ring the core of the earth like a bell. And we have to be able to withstand the vibrations of that coming out. Now, my understanding when I read about these things is they say this is going to happen, but it's usually not all that quick. Could be, who knows? I don't know, so I don't worry about it. But that's kind of where we are with ley lines, vortexes, and why this solstice is so important, because it's fixing the ley lines straight. And I asked Hogarth if that was true, and he says yes. And he said it's going to be really quick for me. It may not be as quick for you. So that's kind of my solstice report for this year. Like I said, there are objects you can bring into your home to help you with candles. And a lot of people like to bring in fruit, apples, oranges, anything that to increase the fragrances, anything that increases your sense of your senses is welcome at this time. And the other person I'm going to talk about now, this is a book by Hamish Miller, and it's called Dowsing, A Journey. It's called A Journey Between Our Five Senses. and he actually, there's a lot of YouTube shows that show Hamish, I think it's Hamish, in working with people and teaching them how to dowse. He also went to all the chakras of the earth and went to the vortexes and visited them. And there's a whole documentary on that, and it's kind of fascinating if you're into earth energies. And once you get into earth energies, a lot of other things people talk about make sense. And this book is super simple. He also wrote a child's book for about using dowsing rods, and he uses traditional dowsing rods. He uses these guys. He's the reason I got a set of these guys. And which way's yes? Come on, which way's yes? Okay, now go back out neutral. Which way's no? They don't want to perform, but yes is cross, no is wide out. And if they really don't know, I've actually had them just spin like, what the hell are you asking me that for? When I go out to visit Cecil, I take this, or you can also dowse with a pendulum. And pendulums are also a dowsing tool. And those are both things you can use if you're out looking for ley lines or want to know if an area around you is blessed. But the big thing is, according to the people who spend more time on this than I do, that are around Rory Duff, and you can look him up because he just had a video up a couple weeks ago talking about this. They're coming, and as we raise our vibration, it makes it easier for us to see them. And they are around us now, and they are out on the earth, and they are trying to communicate with you if you want to talk to them. And, it's like, get quiet, get inside yourself. No news story is going to show you, where to go find your fairies. You're going to have to find it within yourself, and they're everywhere. I mean, they're not just fairies, there's elves, there's gnomes. In Mexico, they're called the Alusas, Allux, I think, is how it's done. Anyway, the Alushas, there's in the Native American tradition. I love this name. I've never been able to forget it because I think it's so cool. They're called the Pudwudgies. And to us, they kind of look like elves and dwarves mixed together. But they have their Pudwudgies. And if you get into some of the shaman parts of the native tribes in the west of the country, some of their elemental people can become very dark. Elementals are just like us. They're as good as being as light as they can get to be, and they can be as dark as you could ever begin to imagine them. And now that I'm sure everyone's going to nod up and go, oh my God, she's still talking. I'm going to look and see. I'm going to go back and do a question because Linda was here early. We'll take care of it. Rossi says her brother lives in New York City and there's a whole trees with bumps on it. That's one way to find them. If you live in a place that has trees, and trust me, there are places that don't, but if you live in a place that has trees, if you're out in the woods and you see a tree with bumps on it, look 360 degrees around and you'll find another tree that's in a straight line that also has bumps on it. And you can follow the ley line through the forest by following the burl covered trees. And let's see. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. Oil painter spreading some of her Wiccan wisdom. It's as if we go from the time of the Holly King to the time of the Oak King. Yes, that's true. That's what the Holly and the Ivy and all those guys are about. Can you show us how to use the grid? I'll do a different show on grids. My head's in a different space from grids, and I'm building one right now. Maybe I'll show you that one when it's done, and it'll be an interesting one for being built during this time because it's for healing. I have to get the permission of the person who owns it to do that. Okay, we're going to do a birthday. A birthday reading for Linda Bruce. Let me see. I've got every card in the world out here right now because I've been lazy and not putting them back up where they belong. Okay. Use my pretty pretties. I like this deck. It's Marchetti. He has a lot of them. This is one of the ones that I've got for myself. Come on, camera. Where'd you go? Well, maybe we're going to do it on camera. There it is. It just needed to have time to think about coming on. This is the deck I use. Well, these two decks are the ones I use when I build grids. It's a totally different system, totally different set of vibrations, totally different action inside my brain. But it's where that has more to do with sacred geometry and stuff than tarot or anything else. Okay. Linda Bruce. We want a birthday reading for Linda Bruce. And I'll pull you an oracle card too. Seems appropriate. Okay. Linda Bruce, birthday. What's going on around the girl? Well, it's telling you just go have a good time. You got the Fool. Everything's sort of ahead of you. I think there was a time when you thought, when I turn 65, everything's going to be behind me. But nope. You're thinking about making some big moves and changes. This is the 8 of Cups. And I'm going to see if I turn this lamp off. Hold for a second. Hold me from that. Okay. That cuts the glare off the cards. Okay. It's your 8 of Cups, and this is what's far behind you, what's near past, far future, near future, and we're going to have to move you guys again. Big fat decks of cards don't fit on my little B table. This is Hopes and Fears. This is where you are kind of today, the position you're in. This is what helps you, and that's a great card to have helping you because that's spirit. And okay, you're ready to let it go. You're ready to unload all of the stuff that's been piled on you. You really want to, you're feeling very free today, and you were not expecting that, I don't think. You had a relatively happy and serene past. You got the 6 of Cups. But right now, you're wanting to be able to let go and not be so bound. This is the 4 of Cups, and that's the guy who's holding all the money and doesn't want to let it go. And but you're at the point where you're saying, no, it's only money. Why am I holding on to it? It's only the ultimate manifestation of the material world. So this is where you are today. Now, the vibrations of these, this is great. That's a great thing to have for a birthday. You just need to hold on to those feelings and to learn how to let this stuff go. You are really reevaluating how you've lived your life, and you're deciding what you want to keep and what you're going to let go and what you're going to continue to function with in this world. These 6 cards are the future. They have not happened yet, but it's what you're setting the stage for if you want to. So you can also choose to not set the stage. So you can also choose, well, I'm not going to look at it and I'm going to go on the old way I have before. And I get the vibration from these cards. You are not wanting to stay where you were before. You've been tied. I don't know what your family culture was or what culture they came from, but they were very tied bound, and we do what the emperor says. We do what's in the books. We do everything by the books, but you were always kind of an independent thinker. And you had the unfortunate habit. I was a page of swords as a child also, Linda. You had the unfortunate habit of telling people what you really think. It's amazing that it is not as well thought of as we would think. But still, you did it. And you are now breaking into a completely new spiritual path. You are not stuck with the Hierophant anymore. And the biggest part of the shadow work you're having to do is to get rid of the masculine energies that were put in your head. And like I said, anything that's out there, you can turn it. The King of Wands can also be a place where we can learn a great deal and how to maneuver and what we should do. But first, you need to lay down the burden you've carried for too long, judgments, and I think you're ready to do that. If you do that, you can turn away from the Nine of Wands and not carry those wands anymore. Not have to be the defensive person. I get a funny feeling that part in your life, part of the reason you feel so free now is you were the one that always had to uphold how things were done or defend them or whatever, and you're breaking out of that. And I don't know if that's even close to the truth, Linda, but I'm going to pull an oracle card because that is a great reading. You are breaking free. You're aware of it. You have plenty of room left to maneuver in to move to the next things. Let's see. Since we were talking about the elementals, we're going to do the fairy wisdom cards. I love this deck. It's so pretty. My granddaughter, who's 9, she loves this deck because she loves the fairies and she loves the images of the fairies. These fairies are not I'm going to sit here like a good little girl with my hands folded and take it. These fairies have sass. Ah, you're the fairy that looks like a dormouse. I'm going to pull another one because I think this is where you've been. You've been the dormouse, and where are you going to next? Oh, you're going to be overindulgent. Watch that fool on your birthday. And you're going to have health. So what we've got is, I'm going to read you the definition because these cards are so cute. Isn't he cute? See the little dormouse in the door? I tell you, girl, when you come alive, it's going to shock some people. Probably already are shocking you. And the dormouse can represent your home and the place you feel the happiest and safest. In the physical body is also the house in your soul at times can be reflected in this card. It can be all about family, close relationships, childhood memories. That would make sense. Go with the feeling of, what is this all about? What is it that I need to look at and do over again or let go? Why? Indeed, you need to clear out the childhood trauma from your aura. It will help you revisit the pleasant and carefree memories because you had a lot of good times. It wasn't all horrible, but the bad guys occasionally rise up and catch us. Ring chimes or bells, clap your hands, drum around the room, break up any stagnant energy. If things start getting too close for you, break free. If you choose, just visualize doing all those things. You can also ask that your helping friends from the other realms cleanse the house and property for you. That's true. You can send the little critters out and say, do something useful. And if they find my cards, I'd like them back. They took a deck of my cards. Light a smudge stick, say a prayer, do the things that are good for your well-being in all levels, and that's where your home is. That's where you are right now. Now, overindulgence. It says the closing statement on the dormouse, have the fairies over for tea today. Have a birthday tea party with your fairies. Life is good, and so be it. Your poem for this one. Hey, it's time to quit fooling around and get down to business. You have become too much of a party animal and you need to focus on really improving where you want to be. If you're overindulging, why are you goofing around so much? Why are you trying to forget something that's hurtful? Shake yourself off, get yourself up, and move. I am whole, I am spirit. I rejoice in my life and the beauty it holds. I am grounded above and below. My connection is complete. I am, and so be it. Keep yourself grounded. So, this is a warning. When you start to realize, I don't have to put up with this stuff anymore, to do that in a gradual manner, because there's nothing like flying over the handle to really ruin the job. And that the main message from that one is grounding and wishing you health. Oh, and she's so pretty. She's just sort of sitting there enjoying the day, looking at the butterflies. This is a health card. If you find yourself wishing for your wholeness, then it's time to do whatever it takes to break away from the dis-ease. In other words, the things that make it difficult for you to be at ease, whether it be physical, mental, or spiritual. All new levels must work together to order you to help you be the best you can be. There is much to acknowledge of, of times when you lacked wholeness, but you have all of it there to be able to reclaim and make your own. First, understand your divine perfection that you are now and have always been. That means that that's that thing we saw about judgment, that you have to look at yourself and say, I'm worth this. I'm worth this. Move forward. Love yourself. Know that you're worthy of good health and happiness. I am worthy of good rest. I am worthy of good food. I am worthy of good health. I am worthy of a good life, and so be it. And it says to call a friend today. So after you've had your tea party and you've gotten them to help you clean up your stagnant air in your house, call a friend for your birthday. If there's someone you really want to talk to on your birthday and they haven't called you, call them. May not be their fault. They can't remember when your birthday is. My birthday is at the very 1st of May, and everybody always forgets it because they haven't flipped the calendar yet. They haven't gotten into that month yet. So, with that, lady, I think you are clearly on better trails moving ahead. And let's go down and see what's below. I got to put me back in the, see if my camera will move this time. Don't do that. Mirror my camera. It's coming. We have little faith. I will appear here. You can hear my voice if I don't. I can't turn the other camera. It doesn't work that way. Oh dear. There it is. And we're having a small technical problem at my house. We thought we did a change of our internet and it all went smoothly. And day before yesterday, I turned something on to do a show at 3, and I had no connections. So Susan came and rearranged it and said, "Well, it's all connected now. I think I found what was wrong." Well, anyway, yesterday when I was just about to come on at 3, it did the same thing. So we figured out what it is, and our bypass until Susan can really rewire everything is the service we have has a Wi-Fi function that you can divert to if somehow or another their network's down, it will attach you, um, and it will attach you up. And so I now have a connection on my computer that if I turn it on and it's not behaving, I can go down and click to the do not connect. And that do not connect is what I need to be connected to. This will tell you a lot about Susan's mind and how it works. If you've got a dragon, if you've got an elf, if you've got a fairy, I would strongly suggest you try to work with them first, because me interpreting them is not really going to help you. I don't know how I can explain this to you, but trust me, working with elementals, I can't find anybody else who can work with them for me. Now, I have read some rather learned texts. There was a guy who in 1917 wrote his PhD thesis at Cambridge, I think. Anyway, what he did is he went and he interviewed all over Celtic countries. Okay, Linda said we were close. You can get past all that. There was really a lot of good stuff that happened in your growing up that's been hidden because there was other stuff was in front of it. That's what you're going to learn, is you're going to learn those lessons. So anyway, what I'm going to tell you is that this book, I read the book, and he went and he interviewed people who, when the elementals were still above the ground, before they went underground because of the Industrial Revolution. And because he was a young man in the early 1900s, he was interviewing people that were very, very old in their 90s that had been around while we were having the American Revolution. And they were talking about watching the elementals run across the ground, and to see them ramping across the fields and see them singing and dancing, and they could hear them singing and dancing. And he talked to them in France. There's a part where there's a lot of that. Scotland was a lot. Ireland was some, but a lot of the Irish myths went with the diaspora when the British starved them out during the Great Potato Famine, which is a whole nother thing, which is how my family happened to get here. They said, you can stay here and starve, or we'll buy you the worst sea voyage you've ever had in your life. And they said, we'll take the sea voyage. Shows you the basics of my family. Anyway, everybody, that's it. Remember, solstice is on the 21st. I gave you some things. Sharon put in the chat about the magazine that had the really good article on all the different things you can do on your own or with others. And let's see, I'm trying to see if I can get to that one. Where did she put it? Oh, here it is. How to Celebrate the Winter Solstice. It's on Mother Mag, and it's a digital form. And of the ones I looked at, it seemed to be the most comprehensive. I could have given you, Google it, you can find 30 of your own. I thought that one was one of the better ones. I want to thank everyone for showing up. And I'm getting out of here at exactly an hour. Woo! Bye. Go enjoy your day.